Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Yes. Chapter 10, verse 11. Tesha ma'eva nukampartam ahamagyana jam tamaha nashiyam yatma bhavasto jnana dipena basvata. Translation. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When Lord Chaitanya was in Benares promulgating the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, thousands of people were following him. Prakashananda Saraswati, a very influential and learned scholar in Benares at that time, derided Lord Chaitanya for being a sentimentalist. Sometimes Mayavadi philosophers criticize the devotees because they think that most of the devotees are in the darkness of ignorance and are philosophically naive sentimentalists. Actually, that is not the fact. There are very, very learned scholars who have put forward the philosophy of devotion. But even if a devotee does not take advantage of their literatures or of his spiritual master, if he is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within his heart. So, the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. The Mayavadi philosophers think that without discriminating, one cannot have pure knowledge. For them, this answer is given by the Supreme Lord. Those who are engaged in pure devotional service, even though they be without sufficient education, and even without sufficient knowledge of the Vedic principles, are still helped by the Supreme God, as stated in this verse. The Lord tells Arjuna that basically there is no possibility of understanding the Supreme Truth, the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by speculating. For the Supreme Truth is so great that it is not possible to understand Him or to achieve Him simply by making a mental effort. Man can go on speculating for several millions of years, and if he is not devoted, if he is not a lover of the Supreme Truth, he will never understand Krishna or the Supreme Truth. Only by devotional service is the Supreme Truth, Krishna, pleased. And by his inconceivable energy, he can reveal himself to the heart of the pure devotee. The pure devotee always has Krishna within his heart. And with the presence of Krishna, who is just like the sun, the darkness of ignorance is at once dissipated. This is the special mercy rendered to the pure devotee by Krishna. Due to the contamination of material association through many, many millions of births, one's heart is always covered with the dust of materialism. But when one engages in devotional service and constantly chants Hare Krishna, the dust quickly clears and one is elevated to the platform of pure knowledge. The ultimate goal, Vishnu, can be attained only by this chant and by devotional service, and not by mental speculation or argument. The pure devotee does not have to worry about the material necessities of life. He need not be anxious, because when he removes the darkness from his heart, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord, who is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. By studying Bhagavad Gita, one can become a soul completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord and engage himself in pure devotional service. As the Lord takes charge, one becomes completely free from all kinds of materialistic endeavors. Let us read the verse again. Tesham eva anukampartam aham jnanajam tamaha nashiyam yatma bhavasto jnana deepena basvata. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyutya Deshitarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patidanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So Govardhan Prabhu has chosen very wisely. What a wonderful verse. What an important verse. It's just, well, in certain respects, it's just the essence of what is Krishna consciousness. It's just wonderful. In fact, as I'm sure the majority or even all of you are aware, this is the last of a sequence of 4 verses. You don't want to plug in connect up the microphone?
It is.
Oh, it is? All right. It's not better? Oh, is it connected? Oh.
Yes, it's there.
I didn't see it, okay. Hare Krishna. Yes, so it's the last one of a sequence of 4 verses called the Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita, or Bhagavad Gita in 4 verses. We won't go in detail about that whole side of things. I'll just quickly, I'll read those verses so you can see and get a feel for the sequence. Krishna says in verse 8, chapter 10, verse 8, first verse, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddhabhava samanvita. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. In other words, as we understand Krishna more and more, it just, you could say, naturally follows. It's a natural sequence that one will feel inspired to become his devotee. It's not like there's one idea, understand Krishna, and then there's another idea to serve him. It's just that one leads to the other. And not just to serve him, but Krishna says, worship me with all their hearts. So in other words, it really very deeply inspires the person to become the devotee of the Lord. And next verse 9, Mach chitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam karyantas chamam nityam tushyanti charamanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So what is the result, or the next stage, you could say? First, one understands the Lord, then naturally becomes the devotee of the Lord. And then when one becomes the devotee of the Lord, then there's certain sort of, we could say, elements in that picture. What does it mean then to become the devotee of the Lord and to worship the Lord with all one's heart? What will one do? What will it look like? Well, Krishna says, that devotee will always be thinking of him. Then the life of that devotee will always be fully dedicated to Krishna's service. And then those devotees will associate together. Birds of a feather flock together. Even Srila Prabhupada repeated that little saying from time to time. So the devotees who are thinking of Krishna, engaged in his service, they come together and then they discuss back and forth. Someone says one thing about Krishna, bringing out some nice point about the nature of Krishna or how he reciprocates with his devotees. Something like this. There are all sorts of subjects in that regard. So one devotee speaks like that, the other one listens. Or maybe there's a group listening. And then after a little while, then some other or others, they come up with some other ideas and thoughts and appreciations of Krishna. So it goes back and forth like that. And one devotee speaks, and then another devotee becomes inspired, gets some deeper understanding, and becomes inspired to express it. And in this way, the devotees become extremely happy. Extremely happy. Krishna says they derive great satisfaction. But then, not just satisfaction. Satisfaction, that's, of course, it's very nice. To be greatly satisfied is very nice. But beyond that, to actually become blissful, ecstatic, just very joyous. Satisfied is a little bit neutral, you could say. It's not so dynamic like being in ecstasy, really excited through having such a wonderful experience. But basically this is what happens. Thinking of Krishna, engaging in his service, talking about it, hearing about it amongst the other devotees, satisfaction and then even more bliss comes. And then the third verse is verse 10. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. Excuse me. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So this is the result. Or not just the result, actually, but this is now from Krishna's side. First of all, we're talking about from the devotee's side, understanding Krishna, feeling inspired to serve him, then feeling inspired to think of him and associate and discuss with devotees. So that's all going on amongst the devotees. But now, what about Krishna? How does Krishna feel? Does he just feel, something like perhaps that I am so important and you are so small that if you have an opportunity to glorify me, that's your good fortune. This is called being a little puffed up, a little proud. Puffed up. Prabhupada used that little sort of image or idea, puffed up like a balloon. We've all puffed up balloons before, doubtless. And I'm sure we've all puffed up balloons and had a few explode in our face, isn't it? Which is a bit, shocking. Or maybe we puffed it up and we had our nice balloon and we were just really happy. And someone came along with a pin and just went pop. And suddenly our nice, colorful balloon became a little piece of plastic. Totally unusable. Disappointing. So becoming puffed up is not a good idea. Because puffing up, it's just a matter of hot air, really. And hot air. What's hot air? Anyway, the thing is, though, that Krishna, we're talking about Krishna and his reaction and response to being understood, to being served, to being thought about, to being discussed about. How does Krishna respond and react to all of that? Well, Krishna becomes very happy. He appreciates that and he reciprocates with that. Krishna has a heart. Sometimes some people are accused of being heartless. Well, sometimes some people, they are like that. They're just too harsh and just abusive even, or at least say not friendly. And then you can say, well, have a heart. Krishna has a heart. Krishna feels. And Krishna feels for us. And when Krishna sees that we, despite our different shortcomings, which we have sufficient of, or more than sufficient, too many actually, when he sees that despite all that, we are trying, particularly if he sees we're really trying our best, just as much as we're able, Krishna actually feels compassionate. That's how he feels. He feels compassionate. Look at this poor little conditioned soul. Oh, just caught up in this material world. Oh gosh. But trying, despite everything, really trying. And Krishna feels compassionate and he gives some mercy. He reciprocates. And what is that reciprocation? Of course, we know in many cases people think reciprocation from God should come, or they expect it to come, or hope that it'll come in the form of some material like a gift, something like that. We'll get more money, we'll get better health, etc., etc., these types of ideas. And this is the mercy of God. This is what we look forward to or hope for. But Krishna says, no, that if I see someone who is, as he says, constantly devoted to serving me with love, then Krishna reciprocates by giving understanding. A specific type of understanding. How we can actually approach him and connect with him and really establish a real relationship with him. That sort of understanding. Not necessarily just some understanding like book knowledge type of understanding, some facts and figures, even facts and figures, or if you want to say facts at least from Bhagavad Gita, not just that, but it's a very specific type of understanding, how to approach him. It's subtle how to approach Krishna. He's a person, and there's not really like exactly a formula how to approach a person and sort of get a relationship going. Because everyone's an individual. And some people will respond if you approach them in one way. Some people will not if you approach them in that way. You should approach them in another way, and then they'll respond. More, at least. So, anyway, I could just drop in that Krishna, as a person, Krishna likes to be appreciated. Isn't it only natural if someone does things for you, particularly if someone extends themselves for you and takes some trouble for you, isn't it natural that they will have some expectation of at least gratitude, appreciation, something, not just, being taken for granted. So Krishna appreciates when we appreciate him, when we glorify him. And Prabhupada, to illustrate this point, at least when I was a very new devotee, then one devotee told us, this devotee was always full of Prabhupada saids. And Prabhupada dids. He was just overflowing with these things. I hope they're authentic. But anyway, he said that one time Prabhupada was talking about this point, how Krishna appreciates when we glorify him, like when we chant Hare Krishna, when we chant his name, when we express some appreciation, how nice is Krishna. And Prabhupada made the point, according to this devotee, but it's quite understandable, that we are little parts and parcels of Krishna. So we have in our personalities, our natures, there are different characteristics and features which Krishna also has. And one of them is this one we're mentioning, that he appreciates being glorified. And we're told that Prabhupada then picked out one devotee in the audience. Who shall we pick out? You're all looking very serious. Sure. Who shall we pick out? Namacharya? All right. Okay, just be very sober. You're on spot. So he said that Prabhupada then chose one devotee and said, like, this Namacharya, what a nice devotee. Just a nice devotee. What a warm heart and kindly person with good qualities. And Prabhupada then said, look, see, he's smiling. And he is. And you're all smiling, even though none of you were glorified. But you're all nice, actually. You're all really nice. So Krishna, just as we respond to glorification, and even sometimes, I've tried it in situations like, tell a person, please don't react. Just stay cool and then glorify them. The person, I don't think I've ever had a person who could stop smiling when they got glorified. And Krishna's like that. We are like that because Krishna's like that. We have 2 eyes and 1 nose because Krishna has 2 eyes and 1 nose. Yeah. In our little way, we're sort of following in the footsteps of Krishna. So, but when Krishna really feels pleased with you and he feels that he wants to do something for you, then, according to this verse, this is now verse 10, he gives you understanding. And not just some general understanding, but specific, how you can come to him, what to do, what not to do, so you can approach him and actually come to him. Yeah. Actually enter into a relationship with him. And because he's a person, like as you get to know a person, you see that there are intricacies in their character. And you have to learn you sort of have to learn the person if you're going to really establish a relationship with them. You have to learn them. Yeah. What they like, what they don't like, how they like it, how they don't like it. Which brings us to the verse we're looking at today, which is kind of like the same idea. At least it's very, very similar idea. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this is all part of this understanding by which one can come to Krishna. It's all part of that. The darkness born of ignorance, which is there, we're sort of saturated with it. It needs to be destroyed. And how? With what? The shining lamp of knowledge. He just said, I give the understanding. So it's just elaborating a little further on the same idea as in the previous verse. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport explores this in interesting and important ways. And one point, it's kind of the first point really, that Prabhupada brings out in the purport. Well, first of all, he talks about the mayavadis and how the mayavadis think that the devotees are just sentimentalists. Prakashananda Saraswati was there in Benares, Lord Chaitanya came, and Prakashananda was the leader of a whole group of sannyasis, mayavadis, impersonalists. And they would just sit down together and speculate and debate about different things to do with the idea that God and us are all impersonal, not persons, non-persons. sort of like things, or not even things, but that there is no individuality, but rather there's just a type of oneness which is just pervading everything. And any ideas or impressions that we have that there is individuality, like we're looking around here right now, there are some number of individuals here, but it's not true. It's not true. It's like, it is literally hallucination. You are seeing one thing, but you think you're seeing many things, many people, and a floor and a roof and walls and, tables, all these different items in this space. According to the mayavadis, the impersonalists, it's just hallucination. It's not there. These things are not there. There's just a oneness which is there. So this Prakashananda, he and his followers, this was their program. Just all day they just talk about these things. And they invited Lord Chaitanya. He invited Prakashananda Saraswati, invited Lord Chaitanya, come and meet us and discuss with us also. But Lord Chaitanya didn't. He went out chanting in the streets. And all sorts of people gathered. Just all sorts, literally. Old, young, male, female. Just all sorts of people gathered. And they all chanted with him. And when they all chanted with him, they became so affected by that chanting with him. They became very emotional. Some were crying, some were fainting. It was just such a powerful experience, chanting Hare Krishna with Lord Chaitanya. So Prakashananda Saraswati, this impersonalist Mayavadi, accused Lord Chaitanya that you're not a real sannyasi because you're not into this studying and discussing and debating and just all this knowledge. You're not into that. You're just into this whole emotional thing of chanting and jumping around and sometimes crying. So you're not a real sannyasi. You're just a sentimentalist. So, to cut a long story short, eventually Lord Chaitanya, he was staying with a devotee who he had known before. And this devotee was feeling very bad hearing these criticisms of Lord Chaitanya. So he appealed to Lord Chaitanya, please meet with them and discuss. And Lord Chaitanya agreed, and he did. And when he did, those poor Mayavadi sannyasis who thought they knew so much and were very expert in presenting things in this way and that and turning ideas upside down and inside out, they were shocked. They were beyond shocked. Lord Chaitanya established some points which are extremely important and even kind of obvious, but they never occurred to them. Like, here's just an example. This is all discussed actually in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 7. So, these Mayavadis, their discussions and debates and arguments are not just totally concocted, they are based on Bhagavad Gita. They're based on Bhagavad Gita and some other scriptures, like even particularly the Brahma Sutras, Vedanta Sutra, particularly that actually, but also on Bhagavad Gita. But what they do, they take the different verses from these books, particularly Vedanta Sutra, and then they interpret them in different ways from what they are more obviously trying to say. They sort of twist out some other meanings and ignore the natural meaning, which is clear from the statements. So Lord Chaitanya made the point, which was a bit of a shock for them, that if Vyasadeva has made these statements, but you don't want to accept them, you'd rather have your own idea, kind of dream up some other idea, then what's the point of listening to Vyasadeva? What's the point? You think you're better than him, so why bother with Vyasadeva? And they were like, wow, we never thought about that. And if Vyasadeva, you are interpreting his statements in very different ways sometimes. In other words, you're saying he is wrong. He has made wrong statements, and now we are sorting them out and getting them right. Then, but some of his statements you're accepting, but some you're rejecting. Then what's the point of Vyasadeva? Either you accept, either he's worth accepting, or he's worth rejecting. So, these points and various others, Lord Chaitanya put to them, and they were just taken aback. They were greatly taken aback. And they realized that actually Lord Chaitanya is right, and we've made serious mistakes in our efforts to increase our understanding. So they all surrendered to Lord Chaitanya, actually. So that's the first thing that Prabhupada brings out. Watch out for the mayavadis. Watch out for the impersonalists, because they have many misconceptions. In fact, they generally have misconceptions. It is unusual for them to get something right, so best to avoid them. Like one idea that from the impersonalists, which Prabhupada talked about, is that the impersonalists say it is a problem being a person. It's a problem being a person, because when you're a person, you have emotions, and sometimes your emotions sort of let you down. You become upset. You become disturbed. And, of course, sometimes you feel happy, but then inevitably distress comes. So it's just emotions means a process which inevitably involves distress. So therefore, we're better without emotions. And our minds, we have so many misconceptions, so many wrong ideas. We're better off without minds. And relationships, oh, watch out. You get involved in some relationship with someone and they let you down. So we're better off without relationships. And senses. Oh, the senses, sometimes we perceive things wrongly. And sometimes we get sort of sensually addicted. And that creates problems. We want to eat too much, sleep too much, and do these sensory activities which cause us distress. We're better off without senses. And in other words, we're really ultimately better off not being persons. This is impersonalism. So Prabhupada, the way he put it, was that, yes, every one of us has a little finger, right, on our left hand. How much pleasure have you ever got from the little finger on your left hand? Did you ever get some real wow, that feels so good from the little finger of your left hand? But did you ever, maybe hit it with a hammer or close it in a door or burn it or something? You know what I mean? So, your finger, you hurt your finger. Oh, my finger, what a problem. Solution, cut off the finger. Cut off the finger, simple solution, away you go. And then what? Well, anything else. Your foot. Did you ever stub your toe? And just, end up in great pain? How much pleasure did you get from your big toe? So now your big toe hurts. What to do? Cut off your big toe. Wow, easy solution. It's done. Permanent solution. Then Prabhupada said, sometimes you get a headache. We've all had headaches. Some of us are headaches for others. So what to do? Simple solution. Cut off your head. It's not a solution. But that's the idea of the impersonalists. Anyway, Prabhupada goes on, and he makes then a very important point that, there are so many learned devotees, and even just sitting here, there are many of you who are learned, knowledgeable, and able to present things nicely. But then Prabhupada says, even if a devotee does not take advantage of the literatures, they don't read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and they may not even take advantage of their spiritual master. You don't know, but in Russia, let me just tell you something about Russia. Вы украинский, да, или русский? Ukrainsky. Oba. Okay. When the spiritual master visits the city in Russia, everyone comes. Everyone comes. I tell you what, they really do. And, morning program in the temple, spiritual master's giving class. Loads of devotees are there. It's every time. South Africa, we're a little more. Anyway, you can think about that. But I've had a lot of experience. Sometimes they don't take, in a nice sense, take advantage of the spiritual master. That's what Prabhupada said here. For whatever reason, there could be other reasons. There could be a number of reasons. Could be good reasons even. they just cannot avoid working at that time, for example. But Prabhupada says, if that devotee is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within his heart. So, the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge, either in the normal way, through reading the literatures, hearing from the spiritual master, or just hearing from the devotees. That's the normal way. But if there is, not just making excuses for not reading the books or listening to the devotees, but if there's some genuine reason, like if someone's illiterate, for example, we have illiterate devotees. If someone is deaf, we have deaf devotees, we have blind devotees. I mean, we've just got all sorts of devotees. And some of them are just not able, you could say through no fault of their own, they're just not able to read or listen. But if the person is sincere, then they're helped by Krishna within the heart. And I want to tell you a little story. May I ask you, you're one of the authorities, right? What time do we go till?
We go till maybe
normally
25 past 12.
Really?
Or quarter past 12.
Is it normally?
Normally. Yeah.
Normally.
Past 12.
Okay. Our leader has spoken. So. No, seriously. Okay. I want to tell you a little story. It's a very nice little story. Some of you, maybe many of you, are familiar with the basic story. It's a story about Srila Sanatana Goswami and Srila Rupa Goswami. And this very idea of knowledge coming from Krishna, knowledge which otherwise was not available, coming from Krishna. And you know what? Well, okay, let me tell you now. I know from where you are, you can see. Do you see my beautiful bead bag? You see it? I don't know if you can make out what it is. There, on that side, is Sanatana Goswami, sitting by Shamakund, and up here above is Radharani and the gopis, and they're across actually on the other side of Shamakund. And particularly prominent, if you see, is they have long, would you say, not ponytails, right? Braids. What's the right term, ladies? Plaits. All right. They have long plaits going, pretty much down to their feet or thereabouts. It's nice, isn't it? There's a very important story behind that. Is that one time Srila Rupa Goswami approached Srila Sanatana Goswami and told him, I have written a poem and I would like you to check it and edit it and, make suggestions, corrections, if you feel that it would be advisable. And Sanatana Goswami, he was extremely respectful, towards everyone, but particularly towards Rupa Goswami, knowing him to be very great scholar, and what to speak of one of the greatest of all devotees. But so he didn't feel comfortable Me correct Rupa Goswami? It's not really, I can't really do that. He's on such a level. You don't go around correcting Rupa Goswami or trying to. But anyway, he said, oh, all right. If you ask me, I cannot refuse. It was a poem, it's called Chatu Pushpanjali. Chatu meaning four, Pushpa meaning flowers, and Anjali meaning like an offering or placing, sort of presenting. A presentation of 4 flowers in the form of verses about Srimati Radharani. So Sanatana Goswami took the book and started reading. And the first thing in the first verse, it's right at the end of the first verse, he saw Rupa Goswami has described Srimati Radharani as having long black hair, which she ties in one single plait, which hangs right down her back. And when she moves, the plait moves. And when the plait moves, it looks like a black snake. A black snake. And Sanatana Goswami read this, and he was taken aback. Black snake? Radharani? Looks like a black snake? No, we shouldn't say that. It's not nice. But this is Rupa Goswami has said it. How could he say something wrong? So he's in like a real quandary. What to do? And he just became Shri Shri Nitai Gora Hare Shishi Nitai Sanchasuta Ki Shri Giri Govardhan Ki. It's nice and warm, isn't it? You could say that's a hint. I wonder how many degrees is it? It's definitely more than well over 30. It's about 35, 36. Oh, look, we've got air conditioning. Does it work? Oh, it doesn't work. Okay. We went to Mother Nadia's dental surgery yesterday. On the front door is the button for ringing the bell. But above it is a sign saying, knock on the door, the bell doesn't work. And we should have a sign that, air conditioning machine for decorative purposes only. All right. What to do? Right, so there's Sanatana Goswami just deeply perplexed, because he feels this is just inappropriate. Because snakes, in general, snakes are horrible. They're really very aggressive and vicious, even when there's no reason at all. They may just attack. In this regard, the great devotees say, they are almost as bad as human beings. So there's Sanatana Goswami just really doesn't know what to make of it. He became sort of, paralyzed psychologically. Anyway, so a day or two went by, and he just didn't know what to do. And Rupa Goswami came back. Rupa Goswami was living Rupa Goswami was living in where the current day Vrindavan town is. Sanatana Goswami is living out at Radhakund Shamakund. Oh, look at this. But I don't want preferential treatment. Got to fan everybody. Anyway, you could try. So Rupa Goswami returned and said, all right, have you finished? We want to publish the poem. I need to take it. And Sanatana Goswami didn't know what to say. Just like, yeah, we're working on it, but, hang on, please. But I can't hang on. We need it. So poor Sanatana Goswami really didn't know what to do. He took the poem and went and sat right on the bank of Shamakund. And Rupa Goswami is just maybe 20 meters away, sitting and waiting in front of the deities. And Sanatana Goswami is there with this manuscript, looking at it and just thinking, what to do? What to do? I just don't know what to do. When all of a sudden, devotees, see, this group of village girls, just some village girls as far as he could see, they just appeared on the other side of Shamakund. And they started playing a ball game, throwing a ball back and forth and jumping and laughing and like this, as youngsters do. So Sanatana Goswami, the heavy artillery. Sanatana Goswami is sitting there in anxiety, but he's watching them. They're just there in front of them. And, as they say, you got to look at something. So he's just looking at them. And there, as he's watching those young girls playing this game with the ball, he saw one of them make it swing. Oops, yeah, that's why. Otherwise we'd take off. So, Sanatana Goswami saw suddenly on the back of one of these girls was a black snake climbing up her back to bite her neck. So Sanatana Goswami jumped up, and they're across on the other side of the kund, and it's probably 30 meters. It's not too far, but it's a little way. So he jumped up and shouted, "Snake, snake, look out, watch out, there's a snake." And the girls, of course, they're taken aback. "Where's the snake?" "On her back." "Really? Wow." And they looked on her back, and they just started roaring with laughter. It's not a snake. That's her hair. Oh, and they just laughed and laughed. And Sanatana Goswami felt embarrassed. How did I do that and kind of make a bit of a fool of myself? And suddenly, those girls vanished. They didn't just quickly make an exit. Suddenly, they were not there. And Sanatana Goswami understood that was Srimati Radharani and the gopis. And they appeared and they did all this just so I could understand that whatever Rupa Goswami says is right. So, wow, what a relief. Now he's feeling ecstatic. Wonderful. Such an amazing thing. Then Rupa Goswami came and said, look, please, have you finished the book? And Sanatana Goswami said, yes, here, take it. And Rupa Goswami asked, what do you think? How do you feel about this poem? And Sanatana Goswami said, it is a wonderful poem. It is just so wonderful. And particularly that part about the black snake, that was just wonderful. And, they all lived happily ever after. Yeah, really. So, they're really high-level devotees. They're not like us, who, may struggle to read Prabhupada's books sometimes. I remember when I first joined, we would have some time to read every day, living in the temple. But we were not sleeping much, maybe 5 hours a night. As a result, when I would read, and many others too, would read, then there was a tendency to fall asleep. I don't know if it's ever happened to you. Happened to you? Once? Once. But that's what would happen. So my reading was just like a series of experiences of waking up. Because you don't notice that you're falling asleep. You don't notice. I'm falling asleep, I'm falling asleep. You don't notice. It just happens. But you do notice when you wake up. So this was a problem. And I wanted to read Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, I'd started reading the Bhagavatam, but I hadn't got far. So then I started a program. Somehow or other Krishna gave me the inspiration through the heart. I started a program of taking notes while I read. There's so many interesting things on every page. And I would write them down under headings. There's like here, Prabhupada begins the purport. When Lord Chaitanya was in Benares, he was promulgating the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So I'd write that down under the heading, chanting. And then we go on, Prakashananda Saraswati something. Even if a devotee doesn't take advantage of the literatures or spiritual master, he's sincere, Krishna helps within the heart. So I'd write that down under maybe Krishna's mercy or something, with a separate page. And you know what? That was 1970. I really seriously got into that, taking notes. Maybe 75, 74, 75. So that's now 45 years ago. I've still got those notes in Durban. I've still got those notes. And I use them sometimes. All these quotations, hundreds and thousands, I think, from Srila Prabhupada. So that's a suggestion. If you have trouble reading Prabhupada's books, try taking notes. It keeps you awake, kept me awake. That was the first thing I noticed. But it also, the reading, it goes deeper into your heart. Otherwise, I don't know if you've had the experience of reading for half an hour and hopefully not falling asleep, but then you close the book and you can't remember what you read. Have you ever had that experience? maybe worse. Yes. So that's a suggestion there. So let's see now what next. Yes.
Some questions.
All right. All right. Okay, so let's just close here on this. And well, there is one other little story I want to tell you, which you may have also heard before, is that there's one biography of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta from many years ago. It's not the big one by Bhakti Vikash Swami, but someone else wrote a biography. And there he tells a story of how one big university Hindu scholar from Benares Hindu University came to visit Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in Mayapur, Bengal, with some, like sophisticated questions about religion, spirituality, and whatever. So he arrived with his serious questions, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told him, I'm busy right now. I'll be free shortly. But for the time being, why don't you just go and ask those boys over there? There was a group of young brahmacharis, they're probably plus or minus 20 or early 20s, just very young. Why don't you go and ask them? And when I'm free, then we can discuss. And the man thought, I am a big professor from Benares Hindu University, and now I'm meant to speak to these young 20-year-olds. But he was kind of like a pious Hindu gentleman. So he thought, okay, all right, let me do it. So he went and said to the boys that, your spiritual master told me I should ask you these questions, so can I? And they said, well, we're busy. We are cleaning the arti paraphernalia. Yeah. So, we have to wait till we're finished. But you know what? If you help us clean, we'll finish sooner. And the man thought, oh, now they want me to work. Free labor. But he's a pious man. He said, okay, all right. So now he's cleaning the arti paraphernalia, and he got into it. And as he got into it, he found the answers to his questions just started appearing in his mind without him having to sort of, really think about it and strain his brain. The answers just came. And this was very amazing. All his questions were answered. Then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came and said, okay, I'm free now. Let us discuss. And the man said, well, it's okay, actually. All my questions are answered. Just while I was helping here, cleaning, the answers came. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta quoted a verse. What's the verse now? Krishna. Anyway, the translation is that, what is it? Translation is that by rendering service, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yasu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. through rendering devotional service to Krishna, then causeless knowledge and detachment arise within the heart. So this person had had that experience. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta quoted that verse. It's in, I think it's the second chapter of the first canto. And of course it says, Janayat yasu vairagyam jnanam cha yad ahaitukam. Haituki or hetu. Hetu means cause. Ahetu or ahaitukam as a grammatical construction means no cause. Ahetu, there's no cause. It's just like out of nowhere, literally. But of course, it's not that these things come literally out of nowhere, actually. But they come from Krishna. And Krishna is not material. So Krishna cannot be considered a cause in that sense. Like in the normal sense of getting knowledge, a cause, you pick up a book and read it. That's the cause. You got some knowledge. Or detachment. You just sort of, you fought off some desire for some material thing. You just strengthened yourself, made up your mind, I'm not going to do it. And then you avoided getting involved in that. So that's a material type of cause. But Krishna, when Krishna causes, it's not like that. Therefore it can be called materially causeless, something coming from Krishna. So that's interesting, isn't it? It's a nice story. I like that story. I must have told it at least 100 times. I probably told it here many times too. Anyway, that's okay. Prabhupada said, repetition of a good thing is good. So devotees, we have looks like 7 or 8 questions here, and we've got several minutes, so let's try to answer some of these questions. How big is the soul in the spiritual world? We have heard that it is 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair when in this body, but now we're talking about in the spiritual world. This is a good question. Yeah, the soul in the spiritual world, or shall we say, when the soul returns to the spiritual world, the soul expands into the spiritual body, whatever is the particular spiritual body of that devotee. So it might be a female, male, it could be animal even. Whatever your eternal spiritual form is, that will manifest, the soul will expand into that when you go back to Godhead. Narada Muni in the first canto talks about it happening to him. He says that my spiritual body just manifested just like that. He says, just like, what does he say? Just like lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. When there's a flash of lightning, you don't have to wait for a while. Here comes the illumination. When there's lightning, illumination is simultaneous. So that's what happened to him. His spiritual body just manifests when he left the material body. So in other words, the spirit soul, there's a spirit soul that within the region of the heart of each one of us. It is the compressed form of your eternal spiritual body. Yeah. Compressed form. You know, just like there's data compression. I'm sure you're all familiar enough with computers to know you can compress. Well, look, let me just show you. Here's my phone. It's not the latest. It's a Samsung Galaxy 8. I think they're up to 10 now. It's an antique. It's probably increasing in value as an antique. You know how much is on this? All of Prabhupada's books, all of his lectures, and many hundreds of other books are on this. Yeah, that's compression. If you want all those books in printed book form, I tell you what, they'd fill a wall, but it's compressed. Yeah, and it's there. It's easily readable. That's compression. I remember in 73, we had Rath Yatra in London, famous Rath Yatra. Prabhupada danced all the way from Marble Arch to Trafalgar Square. And we got a strawberry drink, cordial. You know, the bottle was like this size, I'd say 200 milliliters. With that, we made, I'd probably at least 100 liters of the strawberry drink. It's compressed. Anyway, let's not get into that too much. But this is a situation with the soul and the spiritual body. In Kali Yuga, Bhagavatam mentions we should not do 5 things. And one of them is taking order of sannyas. Why in ISKCON we have so many sannyas? Well, it's actually not in the Bhagavatam. It's one of the other Puranas. I think it's Bhavishya Purana. But anyway, it's scripture. So in scripture it says, shouldn't do horse sacrifice. I think cow sacrifice. A brother cannot impregnate the wife of his brother if the brother who's the husband is just, infertile, and no taking of sannyas. Well, for one thing, it's like a very secondary Purana. That's a consideration. It's just one consideration. But the thing is, and Prabhupada discusses it a little elaborately, it is really referring to mayavad sannyas. People should not in Kali Yuga take mayavad sannyas. And Prabhupada makes the point that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, the ultimate authority on everything, and setting the example, establishing the process for the Kali Yuga, and he took sannyas. So it's obviously not quite so straightforward that you just don't take sannyas. So yes, particularly that it refers to mayavad sannyas. In Bhagavatam it's discussed that we have 18 bad qualities. One of them is depending on others. Can you please explain this point? Yeah, depending on others, being sort of parasitic, like that. Lazy, like that. That's not good. Just taking advantage of others because they're stronger and they're able to do things better than you. That sort of parasitic mood is not good. Rather, everyone should take responsibility for their lives and for themselves. Yeah. So, anyway, that's the basic idea. The Supreme Lord is no different from his picture. How come the temple standards are different from the home standards? If you have first initiation, you cannot do arati or put the Lord to rest at the temple, but yet at home you can do it. Apparently, second initiates are allowed to be in the altar room only. Yes, that's a fact. We did mention a bit yesterday about standards of worship. We allow, some of us allow, but not all of us, means gurus, allow disciples who are first initiated only to have deities at home. Some do not allow. I mentioned Bhakti Vikash Swami, who wrote the big biography of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He doesn't allow. Sankarshan Prabhu, who I believe comes from time to time here, he doesn't allow, to my knowledge. And actually, really strictly speaking, devotees should have second initiation to do any type of deity worship, strictly speaking. But some spiritual masters are a little sort of easier going. And, put it this way, it's not impossible. But in a temple where the standards are just, it's got to be completely exemplary, everything's got to be up to the best standard, only second initiates. And here's a good one, listen to this. Only second initiates should be allowed in the kitchen of the deity. First initiates should not be allowed. I don't know if we're still allowing first initiates here. I suspect we are. We talk about not allowing them, don't we? Sometimes.
We talk about it.
Periodically.
That's the aim.
Yes, the aim should only be second. And I remember when I joined, only second initiates were allowed in the deity kitchen. So here, because of the need for a very high standard, because the deities are special deities, they've been specially installed, therefore only second initiates are allowed in the altar room. Can you tell me, if someone gives donations for the Lord, it's an opportunity for them to contribute. Can this be considered as they're giving in charity to the Lord? Do you follow the question? If someone's donating for the service of the Lord, are you giving in charity to the Lord? Basically, you are. Yes. He owns everything already. There's a practice, if you've been to the Ganges, you would have seen it, maybe you might not even understand what's going on. People take a couple of handfuls of water they're in the Ganges, a couple of handfuls of water, and they pour it back into the Ganges. You're offering Ganges water to the Ganges. It was already the Ganges water, it doesn't need it, and you're not giving it anything, but it's just a gesture. It's a gesture, an opportunity to make a gesture of service. In that case to the Ganges, or in this case to the Lord. He already owns all the money, and he just loaned you a bit. He just loaned you a bit of money, and when you donate it to him, you're just returning his property to him. It's not like the Lord can say, wow, look at this, I got a donation. Gee whiz, I've got more money now. It's just an opportunity for us to do some service. And therefore it's more the spirit, the mood, which is important. How can we develop unflinching faith in the Lord and His holy names? Oh, this is now Guru Puja time, isn't it? Have I deduced?
We can do Guru Puja after.
Do it after. All right. How can we develop unflinching faith? Well, that's an interesting point. Krishna Chandra Prabhu asked me as we were driving here, just, a couple of hours ago, about changing the times of aratis. So I made the point that the aratis for the deities we shouldn't change. But something like Guru Puja, there's flexibility. So you can do it before or after this arati on Sundays, and it's okay. So how can we develop unflinching faith in the Lord and His holy names? Well, here's a suggestion. Chant His holy names more and better. Here's another suggestion. Associate with those who have faith in the Lord and His holy names. That's a very important point. Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is 90% association. And, you become like those who you associate with, particularly those who you let influence you, those you listen to. You become like them. So if you associate with someone who has great faith in the Lord and loves chanting the holy names, if you associate with them, meaning listening to them, trying to learn from them, trying to sort of emulate their example to some degree, you'll become like them. And among other things, you'll become extremely happy. Can you please tell us the pastime of your bead bag? Okay, well, we did. We have such beautiful and unusual bead bags. The other one yesterday, did you see that? With Giriraj on it. One girl, 13 years old. She has been chanting 16 rounds since 2014. And now she's 13. Does that compute? Yeah, she was given initiation on Monday, a week ago. She painted that, Giriraj. And she's been doing 16 rounds a day without fail since 2014. It's like the middle of 2014. Means at least 5 years and a little plus. So what age would she have been? 5 years? She's 8 years old. 8 years old. For those who think it can't be done, it can be done. Let's see. Feeling so blessed, full of joy with Krishna. The Rath Yatra was so exciting. Loved the company with our Krishna family. Hari Bol. Thank you, that's nice. I have a few suggestions for our next Rath Yatra. None of the organizers are here. Oh, wait a minute, I saw. Are any of the organizers here? Anyway, I'm going to make some suggestions. Like, someone could give a class. Yeah. And a couple of other things. But it was nice. In many ways it was nice. The procession was basically nice. And program in the big tent was basically nice. I mean, the deities were there. People were able to offer arati. Would have been better if we'd had more like real ISKCON, proper kirtan, and maybe questions and answers, some little spot there, I'm sure, could have been found. But it's nice for devotees to get together and associate together in Krishna consciousness. So, devotees, we have a couple of minutes. Any final point? Yeah?
Rama, you mentioned that we cannot approach different people in the same way. Everyone is approaching in a different way, perhaps. But Krishna is one person, so can we all approach Krishna in the same way, or does he reveal individual ways that we approach him on a certain level? Is it all the same?
Yeah, okay. Did you hear the question? There's certain... We're all meant to chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 regulative principles. It's universal. It's not that for some it's 15, for some it's 17, for some it's 2 regulative principles, for some we dream up a 5th regulative principle. I'm sure we could. Must read Prabhupada's books every day. That's a good one. In Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada makes the point that there are 2 types of principles. Some are just eternal, universal, and some are very personal. And Prabhupada makes the point that some spiritual masters will teach in one way and others in other ways. I mean, not like, drastic differences, but some type of emphasis, at least. We have to chant our rounds, etc. But then we have our particular service. Your service is or was to organize Johhannesburg Ratha Yatra. Now I'm not sure what it is, but something will be there. His service is to help run the temple. So these are different services to Krishna, different approaches with different moods to some degree. And then, of course, on the high level, you've got the different rasas. Yeah. But, we're not situated in our rasas. Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Hare, Shri Shri Nitai Sachi Sutta Ki Jai. We're not situated in our rasas, but we do have our different services. So, which may and will even change from time to time. But it's kind of like a reflection of what goes on the higher level. Thank you all for listening.